Have you ever driven by an old mansion and wondered what secrets lie inside? Well, tonight we take you inside a 140-year-old home in Leavenworth.
When a couple decided to take a chance on a 140-year-old mansion, they thought they were just buying a piece of old property. But what they found inside those old walls was far from normal. Secret rooms, strange details, and sounds of a past that has refused to stay locked started to unfold with every step they took. At first, it felt like a shocking journey, but soon the line between excitement and fear began to close up. Was this mansion a blessing or a curse? Join us in this video as we reveal the details found inside the mansion. The haunting discovery inside the 140-year-old mansion. When Thad and Robin Krasneski bought their house in Leavenworth, Kansas, they knew it was old. In fact, the house was more than just old, it was about 140 years old. They expected that moving into a place that had stood for well over a century would come with challenges. They thought there would be cracked walls, squeaky floors, and hidden damage that would need repairing. They imagined long weekends filled with sanding, painting, fixing pipes, and slowly trying to restore the mansion to its former glory. But what they did not imagine, and what they could never have fully prepared for, was that their house was not just an old home waiting for restoration. It was a container of secrets. It was a place where stories had been sealed away, not just in history books, but literally behind walls, under floorboards, and even buried beneath the basement. Thad, a military veteran and author, even said in an interview that when you buy a house this old, you expect skeletons and hidden treasures. He half-jokingly admitted that he even thought of the possibility of human remains. After all, public records showed that the first owner of the house had died only 3 months after moving in. For the Krasneski, this only made the house more interesting. They were determined not just to live in it, but to honor its story. The first big discovery came almost by accident. While cleaning on top of a built-in bookshelf more than 12 feet tall, they uncovered something tucked away. It was a Civil War-era ceremonial cane, the kind often given to Union officers as a gift of honor after the war. Alongside it was a pocket watch, carefully engraved. These were not ordinary objects. They were significant personal belongings, likely tied to the very first owner of the house, who had been a Civil War veteran. The cane might have been a presentation piece from fellow soldiers or a veterans group, while the watch would have been a treasured possession. Thad began researching. He searched census records, military registries, and city archives until he found the name of the original owner. He even managed to trace living descendants of the family. The Krasneskis then made a remarkable choice. They returned the cane and the watch to the family. Legally, they did not have to. Under property law, the items belonged to them once they bought the house. But they decided that respecting history and family ties was more important than keeping the artifacts. Not long after, another secret revealed itself. This time, it came from what looked like a simple decorative feature, a transom window. The window seemed to serve no purpose, but when the couple looked closer, they realized there was an empty space behind it. Inside the hollow recess was a stack of old books. The volumes included Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, 1880, The Scarlet Letter in a reprint edition from 1850, and Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm from 1903. These were not rare first editions, so their monetary value was small, but their cultural meaning was powerful. Why would someone hide books? Historians explain that in the early 20th century, Kansas and much of the country went through upheavals: World War I, the 1918 pandemic, the Red Scare, and the Great Depression. During such times, families often hid the things they considered most precious, not necessarily for money, but for memory, culture, and values. Books like these carried moral and spiritual weight. Ben-Hur was a Christian story about faith and redemption, often given at important life events. The Scarlet Letter told a story about sin, punishment, and judgment, which would have been daring to keep in conservative communities. Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm was a children's book full of optimism and lessons in character. Together, the books reflected a family that valued resilience, morality, and hope in uncertain times. If the walls of the old mansion could whisper stories from the past, what secrets might still be hidden beneath its floors, waiting to be uncovered? Stay tuned for more. Treasures beneath the floors and beyond. There was more to come from the house. One floorboard sat oddly, Thad discovered while exploring the attic. He pried it up out of curiosity. There was a glass jar with a corroded cover underneath. Silver coins, dimes, quarters, and half-dollars, primarily from 1890 to 1916, were crammed into the space. Additional jars were discovered shortly after, and later on, individual coins were discovered in wall cavities and under the floor. Thad recounted his initial impression of the coins. He claimed to have seen something shiny in the corner close to the fireplace after pulling up the carpet and raising a board. He reached in and took out 2 silver-filled jars. These coins weren't like the ones we use now. They had inherent worth since they were composed of actual silver rather than merely base metals. The most likely explanation, experts said, was that they had been hidden during the Great Depression. In that era, people lost trust in banks. Many stashed their money at home, creating the phrase mattress money. Some even feared government seizure of precious metals, especially after President Franklin Roosevelt's 1933 order requiring citizens to turn in their gold. Although paranoia spread and households occasionally concealed coins as a sort of protection, silver was not targeted in the same manner. Some people have a lifelong habit of concealing their savings in hidden locations. These coins were legally the Krasneskis. Items discovered on one's land normally belong to the homeowner under Kansas law, unless they are connected to certain lineage or cultural claims. But Thad agreed that he was not worried about the legal part. The finding just made him happy. Like a small child, he sat with the coins, enjoying their feel and even saying that they made a different sound than normal coins. Later, under the basement, the most shocking find was made. The layout of the foundation caught the couple's attention. It was narrow and dim, with no remains or incriminating items. But its existence raised many questions, and upon closer examination they found a partially sealed chamber, filled purposefully with dirt, with brickwork suggesting someone had closed it off quickly and purposefully. Some experts speculated that it might have been a storm shelter. Others believed it could date back to Prohibition. Kansas had outlawed alcohol as early as 1881, decades before national prohibition, and it was not unusual for hidden speakeasies or liquor caches to be built into private homes. Still others thought it might have been a vault or panic room used by wealthy families to protect valuables or hide in times of unrest. However, the fact that it was covered in earth pointed to a deeper meaning, possibly a symbolic effort to erase a portion of the house's history or a structural modification to stabilize the house. Whatever its function, it gave an already remarkable house an additional degree of mystery. Peeling back the layers of time is often necessary for restoration, as anybody who has ever worked on an old house knows. That procedure was respectfully started by the Krasneskis. The mansion was not approached as though it were exclusively theirs. Rather, they viewed themselves as stewards of a house that had existed for a very long time and would probably outlive them. This choice was praised by historians, who pointed out that it demonstrated genuine care of the past. Still, one question lingered. Why had such important items been hidden? Some experts thought they might have been tucked away during times of crisis. Others believed the objects might have been intentionally left behind as a kind of time capsule, to be discovered by someone in the future who would appreciate them. If coins, jars, and sealed rooms could reveal so much, what would the house itself say once it truly began to speak? Let's find out more. The house begins to speak. From the very start, the Krasneskis had chosen a house that demanded attention. It was not a small home or a modest cottage. This was a towering Victorian mansion, located on Broadway Street, one of the more historic streets in Leavenworth. The house was impressive, even to passers-by. It had 3 stories of red brick walls, wood trim carved with delicate detail, gables that stretched upward, and tall arched windows. Many of those windows still held their original stained glass, shimmering faintly with colors that had been glowing since the late 1800s. From the outside, it looked like a survivor of another age, proud, dignified, and strong. To many, it might have looked like just a beautiful old building. But to the Krasneskis, it soon became clear that it was something more. This house was alive with memory. It held on to things from the past, as if waiting for someone to come along and uncover them. To understand the depth of what the couple found, it helps to understand where the house stood and what kind of history surrounded it. Leavenworth is not just any city in Kansas. It holds a special place in history. It was founded in 1854, even before Kansas officially became a state. It was built along the Missouri River, which made it an important place for trade, travel, and expansion. Not far from the city was Fort Leavenworth, established in 1827, which became one of the most important military posts in the United States. Because of the fort, the town grew quickly. By the time the 1800s were coming to an end, Leavenworth was a bustling and wealthy place. It became a hub for railroads, steamboats, and industries. Civil War veterans who had made their fortunes, railroad tycoons, and grain business owners all chose to build large homes there. They built them not only to live in, but to show their power and status. These houses were not just shelters, they were statements. They were built with pride, with detail, and with secrets. The mansion that Thad and Robin moved into was one of these. All these discoveries raised the question of ownership. In the United States, buying a home generally means owning what is inside unless stated otherwise. Items hidden for decades are usually classified as mislaid or abandoned, making them legally the new owner's property. There are exceptions, such as human remains or tribal artifacts, which must be reported. But in most cases, as legal experts explained, what is hidden becomes part of the hidden legacy of the house. This meant that the Krasneskis not only owned their home, but also the treasure trove it had contained. Still, they showed with their actions, such as returning the Civil War artifacts, that sometimes ethics are more important than law. The Krasneskis did not simply hoard their discoveries. Instead, they used their mansion as a way to connect with others. They started a Facebook page called Krasneski Manor for Wayward Cats. At first, the name was a joke, since the couple had started rescuing stray cats that wandered onto their property. But the page grew into much more. It became a living archive of their restoration work, their discoveries, and their community involvement. Through it, they shared the story of the mansion with others. They also embraced the idea of stewardship. In Thad's own words, the house seemed to say, "I was here for 140 years before you. I will be here 140 years after you." For the couple, this meant their job was simply to care for it in their time, preserving its secrets, its treasures, and its story for whoever came next. If a house can speak through its hidden treasures, could it also whisper through its quirks, its noises, and the unexpected challenges that come with its age? Let's learn more. When an old mansion reveals its quirks and secrets. When people look at a bank, they know what to expect. Banks keep money locked up, protected, and insured. The rules are clear, and the risks are limited. But an old house is very different. It does not come with guarantees, and it does not give up its secrets easily. This mansion was meant to remind people that while banks hold treasures behind vault doors, a historic home might be hiding its own kind of wealth. Not wealth in the usual sense, but pieces of history that have been forgotten, buried, or tucked away. From the very first moment, the house in Leavenworth was not presented as just another building. It was introduced as a place that carried secret stories, waiting for someone bold enough to search for them. This changed the way people would see the mansion. Unlike the solid trust of a bank, the house shows risk and interest. What was behind its walls? What might be under its floors? And what kind of story would come up once someone decided to pull back the layers of time? To add to its treasures and history pieces, the Leavenworth mansion also carried with it the struggles of old age. Old homes can be beautiful, but they can also be tasking. Pipes break, floors weakened, and heating systems broken to keep up with latest needs. In this case, the Krasneskis found that their home did not only make sound through the artifacts left behind, but also through the noises of its structure. At times, the HVAC system behaved strangely, creating sounds that echoed in the halls and stirred questions about what was really happening above or behind the walls. Even more curious were the strange noises that seemed to come from the attic. Sometimes they were faint, sometimes sharp, and they always left the family wondering whether they were dealing with the natural issues of an aging house or something harder to explain. In an old property, it is often difficult to separate the normal wear of time from the things that spark imagination. A sound in the attic might be nothing more than wood shifting with temperature, or it could be something alive making its home where it does not belong. In fact, animals did become part of the story. Raccoons were found in corners of the house, as if the wildlife outside had decided the mansion belonged to them too. For the new owners, this was both an inconvenience and a reminder. It showed that living in a house built over a century ago meant sharing space not only with history, but sometimes with creatures that had no respect for walls or locks. These break-ins were not good findings like old coins or hidden rooms, but they show a fuller picture of what it really meant to own a building of this age. The daily real-life experience included dust, insects, and the regular unexpected visitor from the natural world. In many ways, these problems were as telling as the treasures. They gave the house texture and personality. A smooth and perfect house would have little to say, but this one spoke in many voices. It spoke through its hidden spaces, where artifacts from the past were uncovered. It spoke through the groans of its old systems, which struggled to keep up with the demands of the present. It even spoke through the movements of animals that crept in, reminding the owners that the mansion was still part of the living environment around it. Taken together, these details showed that the story of the Leavenworth Mansion was not only about discovery, it was also about duty. Having such a house meant more than just living in it. It needed patience, care, and acceptance that surprises, both welcome or not, would be part of daily life. While the treasures gave the owners a straight link to the past, the sounds of the property gave them a link to the present. For those who are willing to listen, the groans of the pipes and the scratching in the attic are part of the same story as the artifacts hidden behind walls. Each detail, whether it is glamorous or not, adds to the long history that the mansion continues to carry. Before the discoveries began, how did Thad and Robin manage to make the Angel Mansion their own? Let's delve deeper. Thad and Robin Krasneski, changing the old mansion into a community. When speaking about the history of the Leavenworth Mansion, one of the first names that comes up is A.J. Angel. He was the original builder of the home. Angel made his wealth in the lumber business during the late 1800s, a time when the timber industry was booming, and fortunes were being built from supplying wood for construction and industry. He began work on the mansion in 1883, and by 1885 the grand home was complete. It stood as a symbol of success and strength, a house meant to show wealth as much as to provide a place to live. Many years later, in 2018, Thad found himself at a very different stage of life. After years of service, he stepped away from the military. "I left the military in 2018, he explained. "And soon after, I decided to open a financial office. It felt like the right step to take for my career after years of moving around." Around the same time, his wife, Robin, received a message that would change the course of their lives. "A friend of mine reached out," Robin shared, "because her aunt follows this Facebook group called For the Love of Old Houses. That page had posted a listing for the Angel Mansion, and I was immediately curious. The mansion, at that time, had been listed for $750,000. Thad remembers what came next very clearly. "We put in an offer, and it was close to the very top of what I was willing to spend," he said. But the process was not so simple. Other families were also interested in the property. Very quickly, the couple found themselves in a bidding war. This was a strange position for Thad. As he explained, "I'm a financial advisor by profession. I tell clients not to make rash, emotional decisions with money. But when it's your own dream in front of you, it's much harder to stay calm. The couple put in their strongest bid, but then they kept bidding again, 4 or 5 more times. Thad admitted, "Common sense went right out the window. We just wanted that house." In the end, the Krasneskys managed to outlast all of the other bidders. "Maybe the other families gave up, thought about it, and walked away," he said with a smile. On December 20th, 2021, the mansion finally became theirs. For Robin, having such a home was about more than just the building. She wanted a way to share the journey with others without being tired from plenty of calls and emails. "That's why I started a Facebook page," she explained. "At first, it was just a simple way to tell friends and family about the house. I didn't want to send the same pictures 10 times a week to a lot of people." The page started with just 40 or 50 friends, but the numbers grew very fast. "It shocked us," Robin said. "In no time, we had a few thousand people following already, many of whom we had never met." For Thad, the house meant something deeper than social media. "I spent years moving from place to place, both for the military and work. I never really had the time to set down roots," he said. "That makes it hard to build strong social ties. But this house gave us something we'd never had before. It became a home, a final point for us." He added that the mansion had always been part of the town, and by buying it, they were quickly welcomed as part of that history. "We could have lived in Leavenworth for 20 years and never had the same bond we have now," he said. "This house gave it to us right away." The online community surrounding the mansion kept on growing. "We've got about 14,000 people following our page now," Thad said. The reach even went as far as the United States. "We took a trip to England last August, just for vacation," Robin said, "and while we were there, we met people who follow our page. It was good. Others have come from long distances to see us in person. We had people come all the way from Texas, which is about a 12-hour drive," Thad said. "They said they just had to meet us and the cats they had been seeing online for 6 months. Some of the visitors come for very personal reasons." Robin recalled one story in particular. "We had someone tell us that their mother was turning 88, and her birthday present was a trip to see the mansion. You don't say no to something like that." Both Thad and Robin agreed that there was something unusual about the house itself. What really happens when a house is more than just brick and wood, when it holds thoughts, history, and even the power to pull people together. Let's take a closer look. The mansion that breathes through its people. Some homes are more than just places to eat and sleep. They carry a kind of soul, a presence that talks about everything they have seen. The 140-year-old mansion in Leavenworth is one such house. For years, it stayed quiet, its rooms filled with dust, until a new set of caretakers came. From the very start, the house did not feel like a private prize. Rather, it became a gathering point. This story shines even brighter when compared with so many other famous houses that never found caretakers like Thad and Robin. Take Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch, for example. At its height, this was not a simple home, but an entire fantasy world. The 2,700-acre property had its own amusement park, zoo, a 50-seat movie theater, and even a personal train station. Guests could walk through the well-kept gardens, while children laughed on the rides. Yet after his death in 2009, the joy went away. The estate stood empty, its rides scattered, and its gardens left wild. The zoo cages where animals once lived became empty. The rides were taken away, and weeds covered the paths. Even when its asking price dropped from $100 million to $31 million, it could not draw a steady owner willing to carry its weight. To keep the lights on and the lawns trimmed alone costs more than $50,000 every month. What was once a playground of dreams is now a heavy burden no one wants to carry. Or consider Mike Tyson's sprawling Ohio mansion. Known for his strength in the boxing ring, Tyson's home showed the same details. With 25,000 square feet of space, which is about 25 normal houses, The estate was filled with luxury. There were gold-plated taps, indoor basketball courts, and cages for pet tigers, which once stood for success. Today, it is silent, its pool green with neglect. These properties had more luxury than most people could think about, yet they now unkept, without love or guardianship. The mansion, once valued at $7.5 million, fell to $1.3 million, and still it stayed unsold. Nature took over it. Trees grew through the tennis courts, and algae stained the pool. The glory of Tyson's career still rings in history, but his mansion speaks only of abandonment. The Leavenworth mansion, on the other hand, was not saved because it had amusement rides, gold fittings, or helicopter pads. It was saved because two people saw more than dust and history. Thad and Robin understood that its worth was not in money alone, but in what it could give back: a sense of belonging, a pillar for friendships, and a living link to the past. While the stories of fallen celebrity mansions often end with silence and decay, could this 140-year-old mansion break that pattern and speak in ways that those grand estates never could? Let's learn more. The rise and fall of celebrity mansions. If the Leavenworth mansion teaches us anything, it is that houses survive only when people choose to give them purpose. Yet scattered across America and beyond are other mansions, once filled with fame, money, and excitement, that now sit as hollow reminders of what happens when no one steps forward. These are celebrity estates that once dazzled the world but now crumble in silence. The same truth shadows 50 Cent's Connecticut estate. A palace so massive, it seemed almost comical. With 21 bedrooms, 25 bathrooms, a private nightclub, and even a helicopter pad, it was the kind of house that seemed designed to prove wealth rather than comfort. Heating the property in winter costs more than most families pay in a year for their entire homes. Though he purchased it for $4.1 million, he eventually tried selling it for just $2.9 million, yet no buyer came forward. The weight of the house was greater than the prestige of owning it. Not all abandoned celebrity homes are defined by size. Some are defined by fear. Nicolas Cage once owned an 1832 New Orleans mansion often called one of America's most haunted houses. Visitors reported footsteps on empty stairs, lights flickering with no one around, and doors slamming on their own. Ghost hunting shows flocked to it, but the eerie atmosphere made daily living impossible. Cage could not hold on to the home, and it fell back into silence. Other mansions tell similar stories. Jackie Collins's Beverly Hills estate boasted a private library filled with rare books, a 100-seat theater, and a massive gym, yet buyers turned away. Whitney Houston's New Jersey mansion contained a recording studio where she created some of her greatest hits, along with a salon, a pool, and acres of land. But even her name could not make it desirable. Britney Spears' Louisiana property, styled like a castle with towers and dance studios, sits untouched. Mel Gibson's Costa Rica retreat with its private beach and multiple guest houses remains unsold, while David Letterman's sprawling Montana ranch drifts in and out of the market. Even Madonna's Hidden Hills wonder, complete with a wine cellar for 10,000 bottles and a pool shaped like her iconic M, has been left waiting for someone willing to shoulder its costs. When placed beside the Leavenworth mansion, these homes highlight the same truth. Walls and roofs alone cannot hold value. They need caretakers. In contrast, these celebrity homes, no matter how grand, remain empty because no one has chosen to love them. What do you think about the idea of purchasing old mansions? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.